Right, still a long way to go, but I think we've solved or mastered the fundamental difficulties with this. Now, the big problem with this tucker is the front wheels. You can see how the wheel arch comes down comparatively low over the front wheel, and the danger is the front wheel swing as it turns, fouling the inside of the wing for a start, especially when one is using a rocking axle, and if you're going over a bump on the turn, we then have a potential clash between wheel arch and wheel. Now, one doesn't, well, one does get that problem with lorries, and with a lorry, of course, you tend to have much more clearance between the two. I've not had to deal with a situation as acute as this before. Now, as I mentioned, or as I might have talked about, this is the classic axle, for want of a better phrase, which I made up first for this. This is a 29mm between crank pins, so this is the right size for the tucker, and this is a straight rocking axle. It's pivoted at the top there, so it simply does that. Now, of course, when one wheel drops, the other rises up into the wheel arch, and of course, if you've got a turn on at the same time, that's when the clash occurs. Now, that's not a desirable situation in the tucker for the reasons I've just described, and I really didn't want to go down that road. So what I have done with this is I've come up with a completely new axle, or new axle system for me, courtesy of 3D drawing and courtesy of my lovely Mars 2 Pro printer and an engineering-like resin. And so what we have is, and I've only just managed to assemble all this, is, which you probably can't see very clearly here, is a beam axle, but we also, you can see the grey there, we have inner wheel arches in there and a housing for the beam axle, which is a nice close fit, but I wonder if I can move things so it's possible to see. The answer is probably yes. Let me swing that round a bit more. You can see, hopefully, in there, some little coil springs, one on each side, in there. So they're providing a little bit of springing. Now, the normal ride height is with the axle up there. And the way I've drawn this is that the axle won't rise very much above the normal ride height. However, it will drop, and it's sprung to push down, so that if it goes over a bump, the tendency will be for the higher wheel not to go up very much, but the lower wheel to drop, and that means that we don't get the clash between wheel and wheel arch. Now, if I push that up to its normal ride height, you can see the wheels turning and they're not clashing with anything, which is nice, but we still get a nice level of articulation. We have, so These assemblies I spent a happy few hours drawing up, and they printed nice and quickly, and they've come out very, very nicely. I'm very, very pleased with them. And of course it all needed fitting to the bumps and strangenesses inside the car, but we've done that. And then we've got a little wire track rod there, and that nut there is silver soldered onto the track rod, and the steering arm from the servo will attach to that. But you can see actually the wheels go right over, and I can push that up into the wheel arch, and we don't have a fouling problem. So that's really very nice. And when it sits on the ground, the ride height is right. It's sitting down on the springs slightly as intended. I've trimmed the springs down to achieve a decent ride height. So that's what we've got, and of course it probably steers much better than the real thing did. I haven't a clue what the turning circle of the real thing was, but this probably has a tighter turning circle than the full-size one, but no harm in that. So my next job on this will be to find a home for the servo. This is the servo. It's a 1.7 gram servo. It's the smallest one can get, and that is going to sit effectively underneath the dashboard. I shall cut some material away here, so it's going to sit in there, in that. Oh, sorry, carefully pointing. It's not on camera. It's going to sit in there. I shall cut some material away there, and the servo will sit in that position there and drive in as straight a line as possible across there. So that will see the steering work, and that's the really complicated thing on this model. It's taken a long time to sort, but it's a battle we've won, and it's actually going to be quite the nicest steering I've ever done on this, which is lovely. It's going to be a really nice practical model. That. So that's the Tucker progress so far, and the quite groundbreaking sprung swinging axle with decent suspension and very good steering, and it keeps all four wheels on the road just as it should. There we go. Progress.